Hey Vapo Negative fans, this is Jesse, co-chair and chief science officer of the Pod is Killing Me Foundation, here with a special announcement. Put down the black cherry number 1 and drop the creepy green apple, because the Pod is Killing Me Foundation is teaming up with Vapo Negative's parent company, Golden Dawn Petroleum Products, to bring you a brand new offer. All you have to do is gather up your current Vapo Negative pods, seal them in an airtight storage container, take it on down to your local health department, and tell them Vapo Negative sent ya. Then, just have a friend take a picture of you signing the waiver, share it on social media with the hashtags #VapeLife and #VapoNegativeRecall, and don't forget to tag Pod is Killing Me, Golden Dawn Petroleum Products, and the Center for Disease Control, and Vapo Negative will send you all new replacement pods for free featuring their new and improved formula. You'll also receive a complimentary sample of their latest flavor, Puff You to Death. But wait, that's not all. You will also be entered into a sweepstakes where you and a friend could win an all-expenses-paid trip to New Mexico to visit the Pod is Killing Me Foundation headquarters, where you will be given a tour of our state-of-the-art science lab 200 feet beneath the Earth's crust. Stay tuned for more info. Vapo Negative, you'll love it to death.
Vapo Negative and its parent company, Golden Dawn Petroleum Products, promise to replace all products currently recalled by the FDA, DEA, and CIA for health and political reasons. Vapo Negative is now safe to use in Serbia, but no longer can be sold in Bosnia. Please use responsibly and discontinue immediately if you begin experiencing coughing, hacking, wheezing, bleeding from the eyes, loss of fingernails, development of hive mind, recurring nightmares of missing children, and dry mouth.
Welcome to episode 11 of Pod is Killing Me. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Jeff.
And today we are starting on Life is Killing Me, the namesake of the podcast and an underrated album, I feel. But
yeah, definitely. It's kind of, I think he was even underrated by myself until I started to get really into it yet again.
Yeah.
It's one of those, when I get away from it, it goes lower on the list. And then every time I listen to it, I'm like, no, this actually goes further up.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, if you go on the Spotify, I Don't Want to Be Me is like by far their number one song. And what I just read is that it's at the time of the interview I was reading, which I should have looked at when that was, but it had 38 million plays on Spotify. So, that's far and away their biggest song. But this album, I mean, even the band itself, as we'll see with some quotes I pulled, it doesn't get a lot of love, but it's so weird because it's, you know what I think it is this is kind of what the best way to put it is, this is what you would call, it's not a holding pattern. It's more like a consolidation. It's like, it feels like it kind of is redoing everything the last 3 records did over again. Yeah. You know, including like the hardcore stuff. You get some of those hardcore songs again. Yeah, something that I think was absent in the last couple albums. So, so there's definitely zero of that on October Rust. But it gets more lush. There's moments that kind of feel like that. It's funny to me. My belief on that album is I feel like that should have been the follow-up to Bloody Kisses. Life is Killing Me. Yeah, like in a really weird way. I think musically it could have made sense as the follow-up, like right to that, because it doesn't feel like anywhere near quite the leap forward as October Rust. It just feels like variations on the same thing that Bloody Kisses already did. You know, you got elements of, like, you still got their Beatles stuff in there. You still got the hardcore songs that are in there, including ones that are kind of joking. The only difference is it feels a lot more depressing, I think, than
than Bloody Kisses did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, what are the hardcore songs on Bloody Kisses? We Hate Everyone and
Kill All the White People.
Kill All the White People, yeah. So,
yeah.
Here you get I Don't Want to Be Me. I Like Goyles.
Yeah, Kill All the White Goyles. And then even their cover kind of is played at a much more like almost like a hardcore version of that Angry Itch song. Sorry.
So this one came out in 2003. I don't have too much about the year. I know you do, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Even when I was trying to find like albums like personally that I enjoyed that came out this year, they were few and far between.
Well, hopefully, did you get any?
I got 2.
Oh, Jesus. Wasteland. Yeah, the thing that's kind of funny is I noticed that when it comes to my music collection, the aughts as a whole is like a huge dry spell for me for music. But the 2010s, there's a lot more.
Yeah, I guess I lied. I have 4 that I wrote down, so not too bad.
Thank God. It's like, thank fucking God. You know? Because I was like struggling here. That's the one thing I didn't get. I got a lot of stuff about music, but none of it's really about. There's things I somewhat kind of like, but most of it's just more about the climate that changed. Obviously, this is now the first 4-year gap between albums that we get with them, which they do again between this and the next one. From the last time we were with our boys and the World Coming Down era, it seems like the world itself kind of started to come down in a major way, as did the music industry. Yeah. So it seems like everybody kind of caught up with them. A major event happened.
This is when, like, on the last one, how Kenny was saying, like, talking about Napster, this would have been the era when it really started to hit a little more.
Yeah, this would have been the LimeWire era. This would have been the era of, this would have been the era where you downloaded all caps with that weird underscore in between words, song files that would say, like, just can't get enough, dash soft cell, you know? And it would be a file that can't open from LimeWire. Yeah,
or just something completely fake, like Korn covering Rooster by Alice in Chains.
Yeah. Asshole Son, Weird Al. Hilarious, in parentheses.
Oh, come on, don't spoil our next gag.
Yeah. But yeah, like, it was the world of that. And like I said, there's an elephant in the room that we'll get to in a bit, but I was just going to say that the year, I looked up just some like kind of historical things that happened in that year that kind of are tangentially related to music and media. And here's a few things I got. Right away, we get off right to a bang in that year. January 13th. Pete Townsend can't explain what was on his hard drives.
The day after my birthday wish came true.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because it kind of tracks because because the album Tommy is basically just The Nightman by Charlie from It's Always Sunny. Like, if you listen to both of those, you're like, yeah, this is exactly the same thing.
Is that the one with fiddling about on it?
Yes, everything about from the Uncle Ernie and everything like that. Yeah.
I'm your wicked Uncle Ernie. I'm glad you won't see or hear me as I fiddle about.
It's 100% like, they may as well have been the fucking toll troll in there. So yeah, he gets arrested for stuff that's on his computer, and we won't have to go too much more into that, but
you can Google it if you're interested. Yeah. Look up Pete Townsend controversy.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe add the word child in there. Don't. Yeah. That's it though. Do not add any other words.
Yeah, exactly. So we also got in February 3rd, police respond to a disturbance call and they find actress Lana Clark dead with a gunshot wound in a driveway of Phil Spector's house, who happens to be her boyfriend. The interesting thing about that one is that Phil Spector has had many stories about him being a deranged lunatic who always carried a gun, and when he famously produced the Ramones album, he famously pointed it loaded at Joey Ramone's face and kept telling him to sing differently.
Yeah, we'll actually be doing a Phil Spector special.
Yeah, he'll be next. Yeah,
on our next series, "Wife is Killing Me."
Yeah, that's excellent. Oh my god. Okay, February 20th. the band Great White performs at a concert in Rhode Island.
Oof.
Unfortunately, there was a problem with the pyrotechnics, and the entire building immediately caught fire, killing 100. I did not realize.
Holy fuck.
Dude, I knew about. I didn't realize. Yeah, 100.
Holy shit.
A disturbed Marine on base watches the news, and he vows that one day he will top this at an upcoming Damage Plan show.
Oh, God.
And that will inspire a song on the next album. Let's see. Yeah, now here's where it gets where you kind of forget how awful shit really was back then for people too young. April 1st. Pearl Jam has some fans walking out of their concert after Eddie criticizes Bush and the Iraq War. But Eddie is quick to say, just to clarify, we support the troops. Oh, God. Doesn't that fucking just make you crawl?
Bozo alert. Bozo alert.
This is also the same exact moment in time within the same month that the Dixie Chicks get banned from radio. Clear Channel instantly complies with the boycott call. You forgot about how bad the woke mob was back then. You know, you couldn't say anything without getting canceled.
Right.
You know, and speaking of Clear Channel, this is the last couple of years from here are kind of the beginning of the end in a major way of like all rock radio. And looking it up, radio station ownership consolidation occurs rapidly from 1999 to 2003. Clear Channel immediately prunes playlists, even more so after 9/11, because now they could use political reasons to take songs off the air. And the old days, they used to be called Freeform FM. That used to be the thing back then in the 70s and into a minor degree in the 80s, where like the DJs got to kind of choose what to pick. And that's why if it wasn't for that ability, Roxette never would have had a career. A DJ's friend gave him that tape of that, and he just randomly put the song The Look on, and then people started calling going, what's that song? Right? Well, now he couldn't have done that because there would have been like a playlist automatically made, and his job is just to like play the next thing.
Right.
Like, and it's super limited what they play. So that came really into high gear in the later half of the 90s on rock radio, and then just every year the list got smaller and smaller. So a lot of this happens because all declines through the 80s and 90s and greatly accelerates after the 1996 Telecommunications Act passed. And if you want to know why your cable or internet bill's so high and why most media that you have now largely sucks, this is the reason. And everything becomes centralized and all of it sucks. And the more rock stations adopt these limited playlists, the less people find reason to listen, which makes them smaller and more reliant on just a few hit songs to make ad revenue go up. And it kind of does this weird death spiral. Had October Rust come out in 1976 instead of 1996, there's a good chance the average FM listener would have heard and remembered Burnt Flowers Fallen on the radio.
Yeah.
Because a FM DJ, if you happen to be a fan, he'll play all of side 2. You know what I mean? You just would know these songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like bizarre songs from Pink Floyd that are not singles used to get played on FM stations when I was a kid growing up. You know what I mean? It wasn't just Money and like Another Brick in the Wall. Like you'd hear like Hey You or anything else. Like you hear Run Like Hell. Like those would get played just as much.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is kind of funny how like all of that disappears, you know? Basically, the brass ring of the music industry was finally having its massive contraction, and Typo Negative was a casualty as they weren't quite big enough to be grandfathered in as legacy acts like the likes of like a Bruce Springsteen or something. Also, in the month of April, iTunes opens the iTunes store finally opens, and this signals the death of the long form album for the casual listener.
Yeah.
Also, here's a fun one here that has no relevance to any part of the future whatsoever, but on July 30th of 2003, I didn't realize this, but the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Rush, The Guess Who, all headline a benefit concert in Toronto to prove that the city is safe from SARS.
Fuck SARS. Who remembers that?
Yeah, exactly. She thinks she missed the train to Mars. She's out back catching SARS. But yeah, dude. So
we also forgot to mention that between World Coming Down and this album, a little thing called 9/11 happened.
I'll explain exactly what that was if you don't mind. I at least have one line
Bush
in it.
did it. That's all you need to explain.
In a terrible tragedy, on September 11th, 2001, 4 planes are hijacked and turned into projectile weapons, crashing into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, killing thousands. The world was never the same, and a hideous Pandora's box was opened, creating a new police state, endless wars, and most chilling of all, giving Pete Davidson a career.
I was just thinking about that randomly too. Like,
yeah. So I have a couple of post 9/11 things that are from the year of, and then also 2003, like the Pearl Jam thing and all that. The point being that this is just a good example for people who are too young to remember how rotten shit was. But like in September 4th of 2011, Toxicity by System of a Down was released on September 4th. Chop Suey is massive and on radio. After 9/11, the single was put on a list of songs deemed inappropriate by Clear Channel, and its radio play abruptly plummets back down. Thankfully, It was already big enough that it was like too late to contain it. Had it been released a week later, the likelihood it ever would have got played. September 10th, here's one. Blink-182 started shooting a video for Stay Together for the Kids, featuring the band playing in a derelict house. When they tried to finish the video the following day, the 9/11 attacks in the World Trade Center in New York City occur, and the band abandoned the attempt and decided to shoot a different video for the song. Why? It's like the kid's so angry he throws like a paper airplane and it blows up a building or something. Like,
Jesus Christ, yeah, that's so bizarre. Why? What did the concept end up being for the final video? I wonder.
You know, it's funny. I don't know. I think they're just in a suburban house and like everything looks like Zack Snyder slow motion of people being mad, you know, and the band playing. I don't really quite remember.
I can't even remember that song.
Here's your holiday. I just remember that kind of part of it, but that's about it. But basically, for people who don't remember, that like post 9/11 was like a 2 to 3 year version of that, like 3 days after Russia invades Ukraine. Everyone is hysterical and stupid as humanly possible. And people are trying to like, you know, we had like before people were trying to say, oh, Moscow mule. Don't you mean Ukrainian mule? Right. It was the same kind of thing, except it was freedom fries instead of French fries and shit like that. But yeah,
dude,
I mean,
side note, sorry to cut in. That reminds me, I saw people in the YouTube comments for Sisters of Mercy, Dominion, Mother Russia, being like, this is a little awkward now. Should I be playing this out of my car now? When he's saying Mother Russia, it's a little awkward.
No, there's a special way to do it, guy. Drive your car as fast as you can while playing it right into a brick wall.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will totally absolve you of all like any fault or complicity in having ever liked that song.
Yeah, if you manage to survive, you can just say that you were having some kind of seizure or something, and you know.
You can see Putin controlled your car at that moment because you were playing a song that said Russia, a song from 1987, which had nothing to do with this fucking invasion. But
right?
God, people are such fucking morons.
God, yeah, I was just fuck.
Yeah, can you please tell me I'm a good person? But if you want to know where that like neurotically psychotic ideas come from, it does come from this particular period of time. Essentially what happens at this point is I'm trying to think, like the music landscape as a whole, though, like 2003, nu metal is still around. And when you look at sales figures, it's kind of still, in terms of rock music, that and butt rock are still kind of the kings of the castle. But their cultural cachet is not where it was. It's definitely taken some hits. Like the reputation's not the same anymore. The music press no longer like gives them fawning coverage. If anything, they're extremely dismissive of them, and in a way that seems to belie the idea that they're just extremely excited to no longer have to be covering these bands.
Yeah.
For a reason, I suspect for certain reasons that I recently looked back and I found an old article from 2003 from Spin called The Rebirth of Cool. And this is an article they were writing about the Strokes and all those bands like them.
Yeah.
Breathlessly just like giving them the most top you'd ever seen, like
Right. Just
and
sucking
literally
them off.
Oh yeah, in the first paragraph they're saying that the band is effortlessly cool. Their tousled hair and like their thrift store clothes. Like the guy is literally like in awe of them. And then he says that their bouncer bodyguard goes up and he goes, "So, should we let any of the jailbait in?" It's the first thing the guy says. And there is a line later on when he's describing how cool they are. Actually, there's a few themes within this. One of the lines is, "This is music for girls who used to kind of feel something for NSYNC, who are now older and hornier for this kind of band. And for the boys who notice that this is where the girls are." And I went, that's exactly why the music press fucking loved it. Because when they were at a Korn show, it was just a bunch of pissed off dudes from the Midwest. And it's like, I write for Spin Magazine. And it's like, yeah, you ain't getting fucked here for that. But if you're in over there with a bunch of like social climbers in New York and you're like, I write for Spin Magazine, it's like, maybe you think there's a chance you're going to get laid. And I really do believe 100% that is why the critics like the bands they like. That's why they've always hated fucking prog rock, because prog rock is a sausage party of an audience.
Yeah.
But, and then the other element of that, which probably portends so much more to our present than anything else, is when they start to, because back then, it was maybe the last 4 or 5 years where things like cred still counted for something, where the phrase sell out mattered. And they try to cover it, which is the funniest thing, because they're hyper defensive, which is, so like your dad is like a huge music industry titan, and like you grew up and you guys all went to like the most posh school of New York, right? The private academy that cost $60,000 a year. And they were like, so that doesn't have to mean, and they instantly get hyper defensive about it. And they brush off those accusations. And I go, yes, the nepo babyfication of all rock music.
Right.
Like, or at least of all indie music, basically. But that begins a trend of every indie musician's parents' names being blue links on Wikipedia.
Right. For real.
I was going to say, the last thing that happened, 2003 is maybe the first year it begins to happen, which is what I like to call the Little Miss Sunshinification of indie music. Which is the beginning of all songs kind of becoming overly fucking precious sounding, and like indie music as a whole kind of just becoming a repository for like sounding like iPod commercials, and everything sounds like jingles, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, like all that shit.
Feist.
Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. It all sounds like video. They all sound like background music for HR training seminars. And it sucks because it became a house style rather than a mode of production, which is what it used to be, which is why a long time ago, different indie bands would be, you could have beat happening, but you could also have Nirvana and they'd sound completely fucking different. And it's like, nope, it's one style now. And everything has like this weird cutesy kind of like the Ted Lasso-fication of fucking indie music.
The Postal Service.
It came out that year.
Came out in 2003,
Yeah, the Death Cab for Cutie thing.
Yeah, I honestly, I do like some Death Cab songs, so I can't shit on them too much, but...
No, because like when someone
I feel
first
like
something.
this fits in. Postal Service was in so many commercials and movies, and it definitely sort of was like at the vanguard of that cutesy...
Yeah, it kind of promises a sort of like sexlessness and a chaste kind of twee good time, you know. It's really strange and
love
and
me
basically,
a twee good time.
Yeah, it's basically this genre of music as it emerges is no place for Typo Negative.
Right.
But you do have on the other area, there's like kind of slightly more making inroads with mainstream dumb guy rock. Which is like, and there's a yin and a yang to dumb guy fucking music back in that era. Because like on the yin of it, the positive side, you got Andrew WK.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of, he gives you and promises you and delivers exactly what he promises there. He's always kind of like the good positive version of it. And then the evil version of it is Jet, you know? You know, the Jet, man. For people who don't remember, they were the Greta Van Fleet of their day. Yeah,
I had an ex who liked Jet.
Oh, God.
It was a point of contention.
Yeah, Jet was kind of is basically if Keep Calm and Chive On was basically a song. You know?
Go
See,
out, bitch.
So Typo is, yeah, like they have kind of like an affable dumb guyness to them, but a little bit. But they're like for actual like they're it's like dumb guy music for smart people, you know, as opposed to fake smart music for actual dumb people. Like so
Right.
Typo cannot fit there too. They're also a bit too theatrical for those guys' tastes. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there is, like you pointed out, Evanescence, but I kind of lumped them in with like butt rock boring guys like The Calling or Lifehouse. You know, if
Evanescence
I
is a
could.
little Evanescence is a little harder than that. I lump them in with like Linkin Park. It's like soft new metal.
Yeah, you're right. It is like it's a watered down new metal.
Yeah.
Because Linkin Park is never as heavy as like the Wave 1 bands. They're kind of they're the point in which it switches over.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I still kind of lump them in the sense that they're very Seventh Heaven heavy. You know, like it is. It feels like a Seventh Heaven. Like if they could make their own soundtrack. Yeah. But they were the last grasp of like that weird rise of like the Puritans from like the late 90s, like the evangelical kids, like the
Promise Rings.
Yeah, exactly. Creed and POD also kind of were like Creed's floating around, but at the end, and POD was still just starting too. So once again, definitely no place for this version of Typo Negative.
Yeah.
And then there's another band I kind of wanted to reference as a whole here, who oddly enough, this feels kind of funny, Interpol. Because for just a minute, you seem to think this is going to be like the deep, like Joy Division sounding goth post-punk kind of thing coming back, right? Mm-hmm. And they had a huge album, and it inspired a lot of other bands, but it feels like those are the bands like your Drab Majesties and stuff that come out a decade later. So it feels like they did something, but it feels like it flashed, and then it was people who saw that, grew up. All those things didn't pay off until the 2010s.
Yeah. I don't think Interpol really. I have not really listened to too much Interpol. I remember when Richard got that album, but I remember liking it. But
yeah, me too. Actually,
I don't think they lived up to the promise of the first album from like the fans I know. It seems like a lot of people just really love that first album, and then they'll like stick up for the rest. But it does seem like it was kind of a drop off from there, or they just didn't really push for any further.
Yeah, I'm actually 100% with you on that. I remember even the music press kind of doing this, like kind of tone with all of their follow-ups. And by like the third one, it was like everyone had dropped off. You know what it kind of feels like? It feels like every one of Interpol's follow-up records was received the same way Hail to the Thief was.
Yeah.
Like, God, damn it, Radiohead, you were this close. Like,
right.
Man, I thought you were going to have guitars. You know, people getting like really mad at them. When are you going to make another Benz? Quit being weird. But, yeah, so like, I was going to say like, any hope for mainstream success flamed out with them by their second record. They failed to catch fire, after the first one. Once again, Typo Negative has a foot in the door with this because like the gothy kind of sounds and the same influences on some parts of it. But they're too fucking metal, so they can't get in there, you know. And it seems to be the last one, and the one that is the funniest, and it's going to be a dumb take on my end, but pop punk is, of course, massive still, but it's starting to change. The Little Brothers of 1999 are AJ Soprano is no longer the fat kid with the bowl cut. He's now the kid trying to drown himself in the pool, you know. Like,
yeah, and I feel like the thing about Typo also that sort of differentiated themselves from those other like sort of goth tinged acts is Typo Negative has a fucking sense of humor.
Yes.
Like every like even their more serious songs, like the lyrics, like Peter had this like tongue in cheek, dark sense of humor, which is completely absent from something like Evanescence.
It's very, it reminds me of 80s U2. Like everybody kind of took that pose, the post-grunge pose, infected all the other genres of rock. We're all infected by that, which was Kurt Cobain was so tortured and the critics adored him. And I think the reason was because he was so tortured. So if I'm extremely tortured, the critics are going to love me, So everything is so angsty, And even like the shittiest, lamest fucking songs all have to have this overly morose, but like in a joyless kind of morose, like kind of thing, Like it's like songs by like Tonic or something, If you could only see, But like everything kind of took this kind of thing where it came across as either whining or just being petulant,
Yeah.
But I was gonna say for the pop punk thing, because like the first gen is getting more serious, and so to replace them as being annoying is you had the next generation of even littler brothers coming up, and that would be like your Simple Plans, your Sum 41s, and all that kind of shit. Because the now older brothers, like the Blink 182s, dude, they got I think they got eye makeup on right now, and is that Robert Smith's voice I'm hearing on that record? Don't waste your time. You're already a voice inside my head. It's just like you forget, like they got all, they're like, we listened to 17 seconds a few times. Like we're incorporating that into this record. I kind of think a little bit that the lead little like riff and I Don't Want to Be Me could have had them fit in with that.
Yeah.
That little now. Like I could kind of hear that in there. Like, dude, this could have worked as the next single.
Ataris, didn't they have like a fucking Boys of Summer cover?
Ew, yes, that's right.
Like, fucking terrible. Saw a black flag sticker on a Cadillac.
You know what's funny? What could you possibly say now? Would you just say the name of like a weird like Twitch streamer?
I don't know any of their names. That's fucking
me
hilarious.
neither. But it would just be some awful thing because that's all people have memories of.
Saw Hassan Piker sticker on a Cadillac.
A Cadillac, yeah. Saw Hassan Piker sticker on a Cadillac.
But that little lead riff in
that
part always sort of reminds me of, for some reason, it reminds me of like the Boys of Summer lead for some reason.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, totally. I never would have thought of that. By the way, great song, and that harkens to a time where people over a certain age could write age-appropriate material about, like, being a boomer and getting divorced, like, songs that are about, like, just what it is to be 40 and be like, shit, man, what am I doing,
Yeah.
Anyway, the only thing I was going to say is, once again, it seems like there just wasn't a foot in the door for where most of the rock stuff existed. They kind of belong to a different era.
Yeah.
And it's a massive shame because like things had become so segmented in this time that there really wasn't a comfortable home that they could have easily fit into.
Yeah.
And too goth for the metal guys and too metal for the whiny goth guys, like it was just, and too heavy for the punk kids, but they got too much punkish energy to kind of fit in with the like, the pure doom people too. So like it were like an unfortunate position, and I do believe that this may have been when this. What's kind of funny is I do believe that like the album ends with a song called "The Dream Is Dead," and I can't help but think if maybe that was kind of a remark on their their kind of career ambitions is like making it beyond a certain point.
Yeah, I mean that was actually the original title of the album too when they were working on it.
Fuck, man.
But Peter actually Like Peter uses that phrase, like talking about like what he was going through at the time. So,
Man.
But yeah, I've got a bunch of quotes about it. But
Go for it.
first one I have here is from Kenny. This is just a short one. That's our Karabi album.
Holy shit, Kenny, that's awesome.
I fucking love him. I have a lot of Kenny quotes because he like seems to give the most interviews, or he is the most entertaining in the interviews. But
He's the David Lee Roth of the band.
yeah, I just love that. That's our Karabi album, referring to the Motley Crue album with John Karabi, which was very, very panned by critics and the audiences alike. I think he's giving. They shit on this album a lot in these quotes.
That's
the band,
so interesting.
The band, and I mean, it sounded like Peter too. We're not huge fans of this album, but Peter said, this was around the time, he said, I guess I'm going through some sort of midlife crisis being 41 years old now, and all the things I took for granted, my health, my life, people I loved dying, people I loved walking away. I was with a girlfriend for 10 years, but she left. It's like my dreams are dead.
And yet this album somehow feels less dour than World Coming Down.
Yeah, definitely. Let me see. I should have put these in some sort of order. But Kenny sort of on, this album, he said, I think Bloody Kisses was an inventive record. It was like our renaissance for the band inventively as far as writing in our style. In a way, it was a positive record, even though it was made by Typo Negative. I would say that even October Rust was very romantic, more inventive, keeping a positive outlook that maybe this could all work out and we could really realize the dream. Then it all went downhill after that. I hate to say it. The band was still inventive, still eclectic. Peter could always compose. He was brilliant with World Coming Down. But that was the downturn. Now we start going, okay, we aren't going to realize the dream, and this is what we have left.
Oh, yeah. See, that's what I mean. It's a consolidation. Oh, my God. It's such a... You know what it feels like? Oh, God. Except they aren't in this form. They're not in this type of band. But that is a bleak thing if that's how they're looking at it. There's a phrase that gets said after a major band has what I would call like a career-breaking flop, right?
Yeah.
Or if you have a string of them. Sometimes it helps you. Most of the time it doesn't. There's a phrase they use when you have an album that sounds like, quote unquote, like You, like the classic You. They call it a return to form.
Yeah.
Oh, they never say that unless you're already in the greatest hits part of your life. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you're in the here's a new song, so go to the bathroom kind of period. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So hearing that they thought of that, it's like, oh, no, don't say that.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like, I would still have heard new shit from them and been like, yes,
Yeah, I think they're really hard on this album, but Josh, rare quote from Josh, he was just talking about how difficult this was to make. He said, writing was always hard, always a fight. We didn't just sit there and make these records lightly. There wasn't room for anything else in your life. It was an obsession for 6 months, a year. It was an enormous undertaking. Everyone was always arguing and pissed off and moody, and that contributed to it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I want to know where... I'm trying to think if anything stands out immediately to me as being like so usually with records like that, you could use either... There's two types of arguments. The kind where I wanted to do this, he wanted to do that, and it makes no fucking difference to the listener. Or there's ones where you could be like, yeah, you could tell somebody fought to put this on there, and that's why it stands out like a sore thumb, Like,
yeah, you
could hear the compromise. So that's interesting. Is there any more?
Oh yeah, I've got a shitload.
Oh yeah, keep going, man. No, these are all good because they're really putting like an interesting lens with which to hear this.
Yeah, so I'm trying to focus on the ones that are about like, sort of the mindset the band was in and stuff. But Kenny said this about Peter in particular. He said he was very disorganized during the making of Life is Killing Me. He was at one of his worst points. He wasn't getting any better as far as his addictions, and I'm not going to say that I was. When I was home, I was sometimes controlled. When I was on the road, I was terrible, and when me and Peter were together, it was even worse. And Johnny was there for this one, and he adds, I think the record reflects that. Overall, it was lacking. That record is the most disjointed in the whole catalog. There's a big question mark over everything.
That is it's so interesting because it's funny to use this as a jumping off point. I always there's always some record of theirs that has an analog to another band. And I would say, like, for Origin of the Feces, I now have the perfect analog to what Origin of the Feces is, which is that is exactly the same exact style of record as Revolting Cocks, You Goddamn Son of a Bitch, which is a live album, which is 90% the first fucking record, with like a weird live track of something they never otherwise released, like Are You Afraid? In their case, it's Cattle Grind, and the rest of it. And then you find out it's not really live. Apparently it was an attempted to be, but the sound quality was so bad they just re-recorded it, but kept the audience. And so I was like, shit, a fake live album that's just a retreat of the first record? Holy God. Yeah, it's exactly like Origin of the Feces. So in this case, for this band, or for this record, this to me, to hear it without knowing how they felt making it, it felt like a almost an opposite thing to me, which is it reminded me of The Cure's Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, where that was their double album that just kind of went all over the place. Each song is vastly different. They do like 30 different styles over like 17 songs. It's equally as long because this is a pretty long record, and except that one is like felt effortless. Everything just kind of magically came together. And it's also a little like Disintegration to me in that, once again, it's a consolidation. It's, here's everything we did up to this point, and we're going to do a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
But because you're doing both things at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're stretching out any further like Kiss Me. It just feels like you're trying a bunch of crazy stuff within the same wheelhouse. So it's like, this one sounds like Bloody Kisses. This kind of has a World Come Down feel. This sounds like Slow, Deep, and Hard. And I think maybe that's what makes it feel disjointed. It would have been interesting if there was any outtakes for this. I would have been curious to know what didn't make it.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can find any more lost tracks from this one, like we did with World Coming Down.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and
that
Anus.
was true.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to that, you should definitely check that out on our last episode.
I'll be perusing the Spain and the Spanish and Japanese bins for any imports.
Yeah. Well, I'll be perusing the Peruvian imports.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Kenny said about Peter, he hated writing lyrics. I remember him so many times in the bathroom, on the toilet, in the studio, right before he had to do the vocals, writing. And if you told him, look, I think you can write better lyrics than this, he'd make you sing them. Writing lyrics can suck because even if you have something to express, it's being imprisoned by a certain amount of syllables and beats and timing. You're playing rock and roll. You could get away with a lot of stupid lyrics, let's face it.
Well, yeah. That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
Picturing Peter pulling an Andrew Eldrick, just being entirely fucking high on, in his case, on meth in the 80s, and then like the whole album's ready to go, but he won't let anyone else write lyrics, but he's taking fucking months to write something.
Andrew Eldritch was on meth?
Yeah, he was on like all kinds of speed, and he basically, that's what broke the band up, and he started collapsing and shit. Like, Damn. He literally like almost died from it or something. He was just such a user, so he had to stop and clean himself up. Well, Jesus amphetamines, Christ. Right? Just, I wouldn't be like methamphetamines yet, I guess, but it was, yeah, he was just on absurdly high amounts of speed all the time.
Damn. God, those were the glory days. I remember I was listening to an interview with, oh no, it was Roger Daltrey, not Pete Townsend, but he had an anecdote about them touring Europe, back in the day, and it was like one of the first times the band like broke up. Roger took just a case full of speed and flushed it down the toilet because the band would be so high on speed that he couldn't keep up with them. Like he would do it too, but like he literally could not sing fast enough because they
would play too fast.
They're so high on speed. They're just playing way too fast for him to keep up with. So he flushed it all, and they like got in a huge fight with Pete. But
yeah. And Pete said, "Fine, I'll find something else to occupy my time." They're calling it computers. You know? Look, you can get a picture from across the world. Let's see.
You just enter your credit card number.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm sounding older. Ever since I was a young boy. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, but Peter was going through a real rough time, between like worse than the world is coming down era, it sounds like, because this is between these two albums when he went to jail.
Oh, fuck, that's right.
Kenny, on Peter's arrest, he said Peter was going through rehab and his girlfriend Elizabeth that bitch finally broke up with him.
Thank God.
And then he got arrested. She ended up getting married and she didn't even tell him. He got pretty angry about that and he broke her new husband's jaw. That's how he ended up in jail.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Pete. You imagine being like, don't worry, he's busy in a band. He's not gonna, and then you see this like hulking giant coming after you, like stomping over towards you. You can feel the ground shake.
Yeah, he's like 100 yards away, running up the street directly at you. Your cup of Jello is jiggling. Like
yeah, exactly. It follows, but the thing that follows you is Peter Steele. But he's fully nude, like in the movie, like Playgirl style. He's always holding his balls. Like you drive away and you can just see him standing on the roof staring at you, but then he's like, you're in a movie theater and he's just walking directly towards you.
He's always holding his balls.
Yeah. Thankfully, he could only attack with one hand.
That's fucking hilarious.
Pete follows.
Pete follows.
Yeah. You sleep with a girl named Elizabeth, and guess what happens? Pete follows. God, that's so fucking funny that he... Not funny. Well, no, it is a little bit funny that he did that. I guess...
Yeah. It is
I'm just
funny
relieved. I will say, I'm fucking relieved, though, when you said that who he attacked, and when you said it was the guy, I was like, oh, thank God.
No.
I don't want to give those TikTok teens any ammunition.
Right. Yeah.
Y'all are really literally listening to an abuser who hits women. I don't want to get me hitting that.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think we have to worry about that. We probably would have heard about that at this point.
Yeah, he would have been featured as like on a Mount Rushmore for Tom Likas.
Yeah. So just one more here from Kenny about just the downturn of the band and sort of the uncertainty. He has to speak for Josh since Josh really doesn't do interviews, but he says Josh started thinking about what he was going to do next because he saw that Peter wasn't getting any better. That's when he started studying to become an EMT.
Yeah, that's crazy when I realized that Josh
he's just an EMT now.
That is so interesting because I think Josh is like a very underrated like talent. I always felt like Josh was like the Alan Wilder of Type O Negative. Like I always looked at him as like the arranger of the band. You know what I mean? Like he's the you ever hear the original version of Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode?
No.
It's literally like a funeral organ and Martin Gore singing and at a pretty slow tempo, right? Then it was Flood and primarily Alan Wilder who turned that into like with a house beat and sped it up, and Alan Wilder added the doom 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 doom, like that's all him.
The iconic
he did all
melody.
That. Yeah,
the actual iconic part of that song.
Same thing with Never Let Me Down, right? Like all the big choral keyboards that kick in for the chorus, that's all him.
Kick-ass song.
Yeah, and it's like, Yeah, that guy is a huge fucking part of that. And I feel like Josh, in my mind, I imagine him as being the equivalent of like, here's the song, and you're like, yep, there it is. There's the whole foundation of it. But then he puts all these extras on it, and you're like, yes. Like, he's the guy who pushes them those extra points over the top.
Yeah, I can see that.
And yeah, and so it's interesting, because I would think to myself, like, well, I guess because you're right. I wonder if being an EMT has fucking paid more than fucking still trying to be in a band would.
I would, yeah. I mean, I would at least imagine there's some stability in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like they're not getting their $38 on Spotify every year from all those listens for I Don't Want to Be Me, you know? I mean, to share. They have to share the $38.
Fuck.
And for some weird contract law dispute thing, unfortunately, the hated Elizabeth gets Peter's share. to pay off her husband's jaw surgery.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Boo.
Boo, we hate him.
We hate you.
I'm gonna punch him.
Yeah, we just a bunch of random fans just kind of just decking that guy repeatedly. Tune in on our next episode when we dox him.
I've got a several more real quick ones here.
Go for it, dude.
But Kenny, apparently, this is him on I Don't Want to Be Me. I guess he prodded Peter into writing this song. He says, I remember before he wrote it, I was like, dude, you write great stuff, but you can't write a simple song. And that's what he came up with. So I guess he could write a simple song.
That's actually really funny. Just like Kenny negged him into doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, like, what's up with all Peter can't write a simple song.
Everything's 8 minutes long and has like 7 to 9 different movements within it. So
yeah, they're very moody bluesy that way.
This is some more of them just shitting on the record. But talking about songs, Kenny says, the only song I really like on the record is Anesthesia. That one immediately clicked when we started playing it, and it was one of our favorites to play live. Most of the album felt like Peter was writing just to get through it, but even when he was doing that, he would come up with a gem like Anesthesia.
I disagree about that being the only one, but I agree with Anesthesia being great.
Yeah, and then this was another one where Johnny was there. He says, I always liked Nettie, too. Those 2 songs alone justify the record. But the rest of the album feels very disconnected. Peter wasn't really applying himself, but that gives you some insight into how talented he really was, because him not applying himself was still pretty good.
Man, it's so funny how much they say that, man, because I'm hearing songs in my mind right now, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right, yeah, Todd's Ship Gods is a great fucking song.
Less Than Zero.
How Could She? We Were Electrocute.
Yeah, shit, man.
Fuck,
even the little interlude, like the Drunken Paris, it's a fucking cool ass piano, but we're getting ahead of ourselves on that.
Yeah.
I know, but still, God, it's so good.
Speaking of We Were Electrocute, that was on the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack.
Yes, it was.
And Kenny says, I remember our manager saying, you're on the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack. And he says, holy cheese, bad horror movies, cheesy bands. That's how I felt about it. I've never even watched it. It sounds like he was upset that they are included on it.
Guys, guess what? I got you on a soundtrack. For what? Vanilla Sky. I'm trying to think of what movie did you want to be on? I remember the Typo Negatives and Eyes Wide Shut. But it's for some reason it's just Kill All the White People.
Yeah, I have one quote from Peter here about a song where, it sort of relates to the track title, Life Is Killing Me. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. I guess that one was inspired sort of by, watching what his father went through at the end of his life. But Peter says, I really don't like doctors because they're supposed to take the Hippocratic Oath, what I call the hypocritical oath.
Bam.
Everything as usual comes down to money. Sometimes I feel like older people are being kept alive just to increase a physician's income. I really can't understand why we can so easily euthanize beautiful creatures like cats and dogs, but we keep the scum of the earth, mainly human beings, alive and in pain. I'm like, wait, is he calling his dad the scum of the earth?
Yeah, it's like, hold on a second.
I thought
like,
he loved it. He sort of gets a little confusing there. Like, he starts to get pissed, like, in the middle of talking about that.
Yeah, I think he just got incoherent, obviously. I think it's just one of those things where, like, I'm expressing my anger, and it's like, humans, people equal shit, maybe he was just, I think he was just in a big Slipknot mood, maybe.
And then I just have a couple, like, just two more from Kenny here. This is just a little thing about when they were making the album. He said, Peter had this car. It was a Grand Prix with truck tires on it, and they didn't quite fit. Have you seen pictures of this car? Like,
no, I'm looking it up right now.
The Beast or something like that.
I'm looking it up right now. Holy shit.
It's pretty fucking cool. But he says, yeah, they didn't quite fit. They bottomed down on the wheel wells. Josh had to drive with him to rehearsal. And Josh hated getting in it in the first place. And then he'd have to drive home with Peter drunk. Sometimes after rehearsal, the wheels would fall off the back of the car. I'd drive by and see the car, like, what are they still doing here? And I'd see Peter putting the wheels back on with Josh leaning on the hood. And I can just totally see that. Just Josh, like, looking super fucking annoyed, leaning up against the hood.
Yeah, I feel like these last two records is a lot of Josh sighing. Josh stopped speaking around that time. He communicated exclusively in eye rolls and heavy sighs. He's just this, like with his EMT exam always. It's like, huh? Oh yeah, ding 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 ding. Just starts hitting the piano on cue.
Well, I remember he was kind of shitting on October Rust in the quotes for the last episode for World Coming Down. He was like basically it sounds like Josh hates October Rust.
I wonder
which is funny because that's the one he's like really prominent on. But
I wonder if there's like a sense of like, because it failed. Like, do they actually hate it, or is it because it failed? You know what I mean?
It sounds like Josh just doesn't like it because it's pussy or something. I don't know.
Like never mind that it's fucking kick ass, like, you dummy.
No,
but start yelling at him. Jesus, you fucking idiot. Moron.
Do you have more stuff about 2003?
Well, I do have one more thing.
Let's keep cooking on that.
Because this harkens more back to 2001. These all matter because everything about the nature of radio and stuff like that, the regulatory environment post 9/11 shifts way more than people realize. 2000 feels like 1996 in terms of the regulatory environment. Post 9/11, that all changes, and that does change the entire media landscape. But let's get into something a little different. This is just another fun story about post 9/11 culture to anyone who's younger, or if you're older and you kind of forgot. I want to talk a little bit about the Concert for New York City, which was held immediately after, which was for all the first responders and all, where the entire audience were like the wives of cops and firemen and whatnot. And much of the crowd itself was extremely emotional, with victims' families and colleagues holding up portraits of the dead.
A little Pete Davidson being hoisted up.
Why, little Petey Davidson was in the audience telling his first joke.
I think it's a little suspicious. I think his dad might have been one of the guys planting the charges, and
his dad died in Building 7. Anyway, 3 speakers at this event were booed. Actress Susan Sarandon for plugging the New York mayoralty candidate of Mark Green. Actor Richard Gere for speaking about nonviolent tolerance, and Hillary Clinton for her anti-police views. I hate cops. Now they were right to do they were definitely right on that last call, not for that reason, but just everything else. Gere did acknowledge
anti-police views.
Yeah, but based on what? Something the New York Post just farted out.
Right.
Gere did acknowledge the crowd's jeering at his pacifist stance, stating, "That's apparently unpopular right now, but that's all right." Sarandon nearly fell when she was intentionally tripped by the wife of a missing police officer whose foot came through the barricade fence at the most opportune of moments. And I got
the most
one more
opportune.
now. The foot just... I got one more thing to read from the show. The Who plays, all these things play. When The Who plays, the fucking Union Jack and the fucking American flag come together and everyone has a boner because they sing "We Don't Get Fooled Again," which is really quite ironic that they're doing that at an event where they're going to blame Iraq for causing this problem. Like, you got fooled into thinking, one, America didn't do it, and two, Iraq did it. So you actually got fooled twice in that moment. But, yeah, playing that song as they were getting fooled again. Adam Sandler's appearance as Opera Man was a comic highlight of the evening.
Well, how many years had it been since he had donned the cape?
Yeah, he donned the cape. He was backstage,
wig.
like Joaquin Phoenix and Walk the Line, hovering over a sink. You know, like all dramatically, like, I have to rise to the moment, you know? He sang a humorous song about the greatness of New York City, the end of Rudy Giuliani's term as mayor, the New York Yankees, who were in the middle of playing in the 2001 ALCS. By the way, they lose to Arizona. The musical acts that preceded him on stage. He talks about the other musical acts, in which he mentioned that Destiny's Child gave him a, quote, bona. All right, they gave me, a bona. And everyone's like, oh my God, America can laugh again. And Osama bin Laden's alleged cowardice, including the line, Osama says he's tough, Osama says he's brave, then tell me why Osama is shitting in a cave. It's like, fuck, dude. God, this shit sucks so fucking much. But the idea that like they had to trot out Opera Man and be like, New York, we're gonna get through this, you know? My God, like, yeah. So that shit's just fucking a bleak moment in history. All of that, and like
pop culture was fucking dire for years and years and years. Not that it's like, you know, great now, but fuck.
But shit, man, yeah, that is. Do you think you had some good albums in this list? A few at least. A few good records.
So the first one would be the Deftones self-titled album. This was their follow-up to White Pony. They took 3 years to put this one out, and it did bigger numbers right out of the gate, and then it just quickly fell off. And this one's only certified gold, surprisingly. Yeah, so like Deftones they were never as big as Limp Bizkit or Korn or Linkin Park. But this was a big drop off for them, and this was kind of when I fell off. I remember feeling like this was a bit of a disappointment, but it's got some really good songs on it. Like they incorporate more of like the shoegaze elements and stuff and post rock stuff in there. But it kind of is akin to Life Is Killing Me in the way that it just feels really disjointed. Like, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like some of the tracks, it could, like, if you didn't know better, it could sound like a compilation.
Yes, that makes total sense. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. This was the year the band Cave In. They were signed. They were like sort of they started out as a metalcore band and then sort of graduated to like space rock. They ended up getting signed to a major label, RCA, and they put out one album that just didn't do shit, and they got immediately dropped, basically. But yeah, it's sort of seen as like their sellout record. It's very like Failure inspired. It's a fucking good record, good pop rock record, but did not do shit as far as numbers went. And the band has like said in interviews that there's a lot of label interference. They were given like a huge advance, and then they had label people there just like pestering them to write more singles and stuff. So that was kind of like the very, very end of bands getting big advances. Rock bands, anyway, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then, just a couple things I liked from this year. Enslaved, Below the Lights, weird progressive black metal band. This is their, not black metal like Seven Dust, like,
Okay,
like
always kill
black metal, like Norwegian black metal, but they're very like
white black metal. Not black metal.
Very, very, very white. Like translucent black metal.
Yeah.
But really good album if you like weird progressive shit. There's a lot of cool keyboard stuff and quiet passages. They're a cool band. And then Opeth, Swedish prog death metal band. This was like, they released an album with no distorted guitars or growling at all. It's all just like
what the
very, very soft like prog stuff. It's actually has some really good fucking songs on it. So
I found a couple. I mean, Hail to the Thief's there is one of them, but even that for me is like but I like bands that have records that don't fully hit the same way. Like, yeah, because you could hear interesting digressions that don't work. And like, when you look back at a whole discography, they stand out more.
Yeah, I liked that. That was like, I had gotten into Radiohead with Kid A, and then I was really excited for Hail to the Thief. I remember the like 2 + 2 = 5. That was like one of the first songs released. Song. There's like some really good songs on there, but I remember just not living up to my expectations after Kid A.
Yeah. I remember Go to Sleep, actually. That one, that was the one I first heard, and I was like, I love this. And so couldn't wait for the whole record just never quite hit the same as that song did. The hilarious thing that always happens, which is the like desire to throw a first term incumbent out of re-election. So like Hail to the Thief, there was a lot of like even the title's like a play against Bush. And so there's this like sense of like, it wasn't immediate enough against him. Like it wasn't obvious enough in bashing him beyond the title. So, like people were kind of like, well, I don't want like long lasting metaphors. I want something that's disposable now, like another record that I think is phenomenally good. I forgot about for this year is the 13th Step by Perfect Circle.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that one's really great, actually. I love every song on that. And speaking of the band Failure, their cover of the Nurse Who Loved Me is a really great cover.
Is that that's on 13th Step?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's probably what got me hearing them the first time, actually, was knowing them through that cover. Trying to think what else is coming out here. I mean, you got a lot of, like, the end of a lot of things, like, longtime bands, ones I do like and ones I just kind of just never grabbed to, but like bands like Massive Attack have their last real record in a long time. Blur kind of has their last album as well. Like there's a lot of these people kind of like just slowly disappearing, kind of having their last hurrah. And so it does feel like a changing of the guard kind of period of time, like 2002, 2003. And so, yeah, a lot of your 90s groups and stuff like that kind of are just, saying goodbye. And unfortunately, we will eventually have to do that with Type O Negative, but for other reasons. I think they would have survived. I think they would have had a better 2010s had they lived.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Had they rode their thing out and had they been putting out consistent quality like they had even up through Dead Again, I could totally see them getting into elder statesman things. And I could just kind of see it going up. And then I could see it all crashing down when TikTok teens start taking down Peter. Yeah,
that'd be a lot more effective attack if he were actually alive and they're still making music. But
yeah, I love that. Just something so fucking funny is like, take that, dead guy,
Right. Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, you're fucking canceled, like...
Yeah, imagine getting canceled. I can't.
Oof, man. You know what? A lot of people were canceled on 9/11. including all of Peter's family, who all had tragically died they were on the observation deck that morning. It's kind of funny, like 2003. I always associate for me as the year I permanently, or not permanently, but I did a big long look backwards for a very long time.
Yeah,
like, and that was just because like the era of like pirating music had become available, so suddenly, yeah, and you combine that back when like All Music Guide was still good and it wasn't like fully bought, you know. So I could just look up a band and I would go under the related and I would click other bands. Go to the whole discography, and then I would just load up on SoulSeek all the albums in a row.
Dude, that's how I found like Big Black, Killing Joke, Cop Shoot Cop. Like, a bunch of shit just like looking. I think those all actually came, and Jesus Lizard as well. I think those all came from Helmet's like related artists or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That. So yeah, that was All Music was fucking amazing back then.
Yeah, that was a blast. You know what's funny? I think 2002, but the whole point being, it is the silent going silent era, the changing of the guard thing, and it's like I think the classic version of Ministry is officially dead that year.
Oh really?
They unfortunately do come back, and I always feel like somebody when they buried Ministry in 2002-03. And you know, and they clearly threw Paul Barker's body out of the thing, and they just put Al Jorgensen at the Pet Cemetery because I can't help but think that sometimes dead is better, you know, like because he comes back with the fucking Chumlee from Pawn Stars, a bunch of band members that look like him, but playing just like playing what sounds like a bad parody of like, what if Ministry was really into like ZZ Top, you know, like. Doing like the same sample effects that they were doing that were cutting edge in like 88, you know? So it'd be like a cut paste mashup of like George Bush being like, I'm going to bomb people, I like to kill everybody, you know, like just this kind of like bad things of doing that, like over like a kind of riff, and it's like, man, like who's buying this? You know, it was cool the first time when you did it with his dad, you know, because his dad's voice is funnier.
Yeah.
A new world order, you know, like it's like much funnier with him. It's all like nasally, and he sounds like a patrician grandfather.
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, like that sort of thing. Like I mean, they're basically they've fucking died with a horrifying whimper, and then they come back awful. Nine Inch Nails is completely in hiatus. Like, trying to think of all the fucking 90s alt-rock bands that kind of should have been their peers. White Zombie been dead a while, so we just have Rob Zombie, but this is the beginning of Rob Zombie not making so much music, but beginning to try to make movies. You know, he's going to become Rob Zombie the auteur, you know? Not Rob Zombie the autist, you know? Hey. I'm trying to think, is there anything else about just that time period or anything? Like, the production end, the cultural end, the political end, which is unfortunately inserted in there now. That's what sucks. Thankfully, we don't really have to deal with that in the next album, though. Like, this is the only time that fucking matters.
Right, yeah, there's absolutely nothing political on Dead Again, so...
No. But this time, it's in the content, it's not in the context. You know what I mean? I don't have to sit there and explain to the audience, you know, here's what happened in Hurricane Katrina. You know, like, I don't have to, like, oh, should we talk about Peter being on TV at this time?
So is this when he went on, like, Ricky Lake? Wait, what was this?
No, when he was in Oz.
Oz, okay, yeah. I mean, it was a very short scene. He had, like, a friend who worked on the show or something, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't his only show. Remember? He was also at Becker, Boston Legal, Ally McBeal. Yeah. Peter had lots of weird cameos.
Providence. He was on
Seventh Heaven.
I was going to say, speaking of Seventh Heaven, he was on that. He was on One Tree Hill. I mean, he was a recurring character on One Tree Hill. He was the tree.
Yeah, he's just standing there like this.
He played the tree on the hill.
Well, there's a couple that breaks up, and one of them says, "Meet me by the Green Man," and that's kind of what happens. They make up, they kiss, and the chorus swells as it happens, you know.
I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. All I have to do is sing with me, and I have peace of mind.
right, that was part 1 of Life is Killing Me. Hopefully you managed to stay awake through the history lesson. Stay tuned for part 2. We will be diving into each of the songs. We'll suggest tracks we think the band could have covered, and we will also give some music recommendations based on it. You will also get to hear me mount a very vigorous defense of this album. I'll be calling all haters to task. No one will be spared. No one. Thanks again for listening. If you like the show, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get it. And tell your friends about us. It really helps us get to more ears. Oh, and happy birthday to Life is Killing Me. We're putting this out on the 20th anniversary of its release to the day, so that's kind of fun. Good-ass album. Next episode's going to be a doozy. So, all right, we'll see you for part 2. Bye.